So I'm here today with my dad. We're going to talk about the origins of our family and where they fit into the American story. So I have a few questions for you. The first one is, where did our family come from?
Do you want me to start with your grandparents and go back?
Yeah, like where our grandparents, like, and where our family came from.
So, I love doing family history, and I've done a lot of it, or done a lot of research, and I hope one day you'll be interested in it and you can continue to do the research. So, your grandmother, which is my mom, she's from Washington, North Carolina. It's also called Little Washington. It's close to Greenville, and it's on the Pamlico River. And her dad was from a small town called Bath, North Carolina, and he was a police officer for many years and then a magistrate. Your grandfather, my dad, he's from Greensboro, North Carolina, and he went to high school there, and your grandmother and grandfather met in East Carolina back in the 60s. But if you go all the way back, your your grandmother's family is called the Cutlers, and I was surprised when I did some history, looking at our history, how far back they go. Your family, the Cutlers, go all the way back to like 1680, early 1700s in Massachusetts. They didn't come over with the Mayflower, but they came over with the next group that came through, which is amazing to me. Even before Boston was Boston, it was called Charlestown, and they lived a gentleman named Robert Cutler. He moved from Scotland, so your family is from Scotland, from the Isle of Skye, which I hope one day we as a family get to go visit. Supposedly, the Isle of Skye is the McCorquodales. The Cutlers are from England, and I'd love to go to England and visit them. But the Cutlers, Robert Cutler came to Massachusetts. I think it was for religious freedom, but I really don't know that part. And his brother ended up being the first minister for Harvard University. And if you look in this book, there's a picture of him. And if you go to the North Church, which is where, what's his name, who said, the British are coming? Who was that? Paul Revere. That's the North Church. He went at the staple and did that. If you go to that church, the Cutler, the first preacher, reverend, is, I think it's John Cutler, and he is there. His name is there. He was the first one, and he was a professor at Harvard. So Robert Cutler moved down from Massachusetts to Bath, North Carolina in the mid-1700s, and I think he got some land from the Lord Proprietors. And you know what those are, right? They're like the British, they represented the British Crown. And I would love to see the deed that transferred the land. I haven't been able to find that yet. And so they lived in Bath, and your family's been here a long, long time. For the Cutlers, the McCorquodales, they were part of the Scottish immigration that came through Wilmington, and they ended up in, what county? Cumberland County, and then ended up in Greensboro.
Okay, cool. So how do you know that these things? Where'd you find them out from?
Oh, I've had a good time. So we've got a book that somebody a long time ago, back in the 50s, did for the Cutlers, and then I've just been doing a lot of research. So I've done the census. So these are old censuses that are a lot of fun. I wonder if you call them censuses or censi. Let's go with censuses. And then also Ancestry.com. And then I've gone online and looked at old wills and deeds, like here, Goose Creek. This is 1789. So I've just done research online. And then my fun thing I got to do is I went to the Library of Congress and have done some research at the state archives.
So what's the farthest you've traced back from your parents? Like, what's the furthest person you know?
I think it's, so like right here, I told you the 1600, here's the Reverend Timothy Cutler, 1684. So I've gone back, like to the mid 1600s. So your family goes back that far, but I haven't done anything in like Scotland or England.
And was he born in Scotland?
Oh, good question. I think he was born in the U.S. And so his father was the first. His father's name was Robert Cutler, and he was born in England.
And do you know his birth date?
This guy, it says here 1684.
Okay.
And then Robert Cutler, who moved to North Carolina, was born in 1683.
Okay. And
isn't that pretty cool?
Yeah.
We went back. I never knew it. When I was growing up, I thought maybe our generations only had been in the U.S. for maybe 2 or 3 generations, and that's it. But it goes much further back than that.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Do we have any veterans in our family?
We do. So unfortunately, I'm not a veteran, and I think it's a good thing to serve in the military. But like Uncle Chant was in the Navy.
For which war?
The Vietnam War. And Uncle Bill was in the Coast Guard in the Vietnam War. And then, let's see, who else? That's it for that side. And then your great-great-grandparents were, like right here, was in the Civil War, fought in Spotsylvania. But I think, I don't know if these are great-great-grandfathers. Like here it says Moses Cutler and Aaron Cutler. They're definitely your they're your like great-great-great-grandparents, and they served in like the Revolutionary War. It's kind of, I think, there's stories about them being mustered up, but I just don't know which battles they served in.
Okay. And are there any interesting stories? Like, can you think of one funny story you've found when you've been doing this research?
Well, I thought our family had a lot of Democrats through the years, and to find that one of our forefathers was like in the 1860s or 1870s, I found a story in the Washington paper where he was convening a bunch of Republicans, and I think the Republicans at that time were anti-slavery, and so I found that interesting, and I would love to know what he was doing with that, but I haven't figured that out yet. We on the McCorquodale side, one of our not a grandparent, but maybe a brother, so like a great uncle or something, died he was a Civil War prisoner, and he died on a train wreck in New York on a Union train, and he died on that. What else? Stories about, like my grandfather, stories about your great-grandfather being a policeman, and he was one of the first policemen on a motorcycle.
Oh, cool.
And can you imagine the old motorcycles back in the like the 1930s maybe? So I kind of find that neat. But the great stories to me is how I'd love to know. Oh, I know one great one. There's a college in Charlotte called Queens College, and I found the old diary, a copy of it, of Robert Cutler, where he talks about working or supporting Governor Tryon. So he talks about Governor Tryon starting Queens College.
Did he own the Tryon Palace?
Yeah. So Robert Cutler, I think, maybe was a loyalist for a while, and then he turned and became a pro-revolutionary person, which is a little bit, I think, kind of unusual in the eastern part of the state. So those are a couple of stories.
Okay, and the last question is, do we have any, are these kind of considered genealogical records?
Yeah, I would think things like the wills and the census, I think would be genealogical records. But look how the handwriting was back then. Isn't that pretty neat? And this is here, where I've been kind of, drawing out the connections to people. And it looks like possibly one of our great-grandparents was an orphan at one point, and I was trying to figure that out. Let's see what else. Yeah, so we've got things like that. And then there's lots of, genealogical records in this book.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's good for the interview. So
Let's make sure. Let's see if there's anything else.
this has been me and my father. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching.